All right, we're going to work on one final lesson that has to do with proportions, and it is actually a continuation of similarity. Last lesson we looked at similar triangles. Well, other shapes can be proportional as well. Problem number one, it says the sides of this pair of rectangles are proportional. The height x of the smaller rectangle is, that's what we're supposed to find, type a whole number or a simplified fraction. All right, when it says that the sides are proportional, that means that 96 is to 48 as this 48 is to x. So let's write that proportion down. Whoops, I thought I was extending. There we go. So 96 is to 48 as the other 48 is to unknown x. I'll get some lines. All right, to solve this, step number one, I'm going to multiply 48 times 48. All right, I'll do that right over here. 48 times 48. 8 times 8 is 64. Carry the 6. 8 times 4 is 32. And 6 more is 38. 4 times 8, oh, placeholder 0. 4 times 8 is 32. Carry the 3. 4 times 4 is 16, and 3 more is 19. Add for 4, 10, carry the 1, 13, carry the 1, 2304. Step number 2 is to take 2304 and divide it by the number I haven't used yet, which is 96. All right, so I will take 96 and divide it into 2304. My instructions say to type a whole number or a simplified fraction. So my hope is that it will end up being a whole number. All right, 96 does not go into 2. It doesn't go into 23. It does go into 230, so that's where my answer starts. And let's see, how many times I think there probably are just 2 of those in there. So I will take 96 times 2. I think this will be a 2. 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 9 is 18, and 1 more is 19. So that's 192. Subtract, borrow. That gives me 8. Borrow again. 9 from 12 is 3. And bring down the 4. And it should go in there about 4 times. Let's see, 96 times 4. That's 24. Carry the 2. That's 36. 38, and that's exactly right. It did go in there a whole number of times. So x is 24. Set up my proportion, corresponding sides. 96 is to 48 as 48 is to x. Once I get the proportion set up, I do the cross product that has 2 numbers. I divide by the third number. I follow whatever rules or instructions are in the problem to come up with my answer. Okay. Now we have one more problem which actually has 3 parts to it. So there's just one more problem, but it's like 3. So this is a 4-sided figure, but it's not a rectangle. Nevertheless, it says the sides of this pair of figures are proportional. That's all I need to hear. If they are proportional, then the figures are similar and I can use proportions. Where can I find a ratio with 2 numbers? Well, 16 to 12. So let's solve for x. I know 16 is to 12. 16 is to 12 as 32 is to x. 32 to x. So 16 to 12 I'm going to have to use over and over, and this one is 32 is to x. Now I think I'll go ahead and say solve for y, what am I going to have to do? Well, I still need 16 is to 12 because that's the only pair that I have with the y. It's up here. So 26 is to y. And I will solve that proportion. And then my third problem is to solve for z, which I put a slash through so it won't look like a 2. I still only know 16 is to 12. As for z, it's going to be 16 is to z. I have 3 completely separate problems to work on. So let me do the first one. Step 1 is 12 times 32. All right, 12 times 32. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2. Placeholder. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 1 is 3. Add for 384. And step number 2 is to take 384 and divide by the number I haven't used yet. That was my cross product. I'm going to divide by 16. So I have 384 divided by 16. Doesn't go into 3, but it does go into 38. So my answer is there. 2 times 16 is 32. Subtract. 16 goes into 64, I think 4 times. Let's see. 4 times 6 is 24. Carry the 2. Yes, it went in evenly. X is 24. Now let's solve for y. I have a slightly different cross product. Step number 1, I have 12 times 26. All right, 12 times 26. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1, that's 7. 2 times 2 is 4, and that's a 2. Whoops. Add for 2, 11, 312. Step 2 is to take 312 and divide it by 16. So 16 into 312. It won't go 2 times because 2 times 16 was 32. So it's only going to go once for 16. Subtract. I didn't even show my borrowing. And bring down a 2. And I think it will be 9. Let's see. 9 times 16. 9 times 6 is 54. Carry the 5. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 5 is 144. Okay, and that gives me a remainder of 8. And the instructions said, now do I go to decimals or what? It says an integer or a decimal. Then that means add a decimal point and bring down a 0. And it goes in there 5 times, and 5 times 16 is indeed 80. So that one is done. And by the way, this problem number 3 is not even supposed to be here because there is not a problem 3. So ignore this down here. So that means that y is 19.5. And to solve for z, again, a different cross product. I have 12 times 16. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. That's 7. Try 0 and 12. So that's going to give me 192. Step number 2 is to take 192 and divide it by 16 again. It's going to go in there 1 time. 1 times 16 is 16. Subtract and bring down the 2 times. And that turns out to Stop right there. So Z is 12. So I decided to not have more problems because this really gives you plenty of practice. It is more on the idea of similarity. The most important part, match up the pair, the ratio where you have two numbers, keep the other numbers in the same order, and solve for the missing part. I guess my X went away. All right, go ahead and do this last exercise on similarity.